Welcome to the Jurist Law Podcast.
Hello there, and welcome to the Jurist Law Podcast with Kimbro Stephens and Shane Cox. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist. Kimbro serves as managing attorney, and Shane is the chief legal counsel at Jurist Law Group. With rich backgrounds in healthcare and elder law, they help families navigate the complexities of long-term care, asset protection, and estate planning. Kimbro, Shane, welcome back. Great to see you.
Thank you for having us. Yes, thank you.
So today we're going to talk about having the tough conversations with your parents when it comes to elder law. So in your experience, you guys have been doing this a long time. What are some effective ways to initiate a conversation about long-term care with your parents?
So, I mean, it's a good question. It's one of those questions. It's one of those things in practice where you have to slow down and kind of like get a feel for the circumstance. And so in every circumstance different. And really it depends on why the client's even here, right? Or even why they're even having this conversation. Could be a matter of the person losing some mental cognition, right? And so the family anticipates, you know, mom and dad are going down, but they have this sizable estate. What are we going to do? Or is it going to just go to a nursing home? Like how, you know, are they going to have to is it going to be squandered? It could be some hybrid, you know, where one spouse is losing cognition, the other's healthy, but doesn't really understand the nature of their estate, you know. And a lot of times for older couples, that happens a lot, where the male has kind of primarily had the access to, you know, the financials, and he's going down and maybe about to go into a nursing home. So any of those circumstances, and maybe it's not any of that at all. Maybe it's just that your parents are getting older, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, we're all headed to the grave. And so as we get older, we're sure going to have problems with our aging. And a lot of times, statistically, that means a lot of us will end up in like a rehab or long-term care planning. So, you know, any of those circumstances, it's a very touchy subject. And I want to answer your question directly. The number one thing is what I see in practice will determine kind of which way this is going to go. In other words, are you going to be able to actually get your parents to talk to the attorney? Are you going to make them mad, scare them off, whatever's going to happen? I try to tell my clients, first of all, if the elder is not with us, you know, at the consultation, and so you're trying to, you know, get them to come talk to us. You want to respect their independence. So most people, as they get older, they want to make sure and live in their house. So, you know, I tell my clients while you're having this conversation, make sure that they understand no one's trying to kick you out of your house. No one's trying to take your money. No one's trying to take your estate. So respect their independence before you have that conversation. Let them know that the whole reason why you're doing this is to actually help them, or help mom, or help somebody in this process. And the fact is, you can't avoid this. And also respect the fact that they worked so hard. Typically, they worked for decades to actually acquire some sizable estate, and they don't want somebody coming in thinking they can take it. So it's easy enough, I think, when people meet us. I don't think I can imagine one single time where anybody just felt like they couldn't trust us. But getting the elder here is a different matter, and that does indeed often require the family. So even though as a child of an elder, you might think, well, I'm here. I'm talking to an attorney because I want to help my parents. It's not always clear the best way to get them to understand that concept. And you have to take your time and show respect.
Yeah, and frankly, this is, you know, the hardest part is getting started.
Right.
And why Shane has kind of gone on with the answer here, because really this is really the crux of the problem, is getting started, getting the parent to consider it. And I tell a lot of clients, you know, the statistics are 70% of people 65 and older will need some form of long-term care. So the sooner you plan, the sooner you can save, the sooner you can protect things. If you wait till the last minute, we can help people to preserve as much of their estate as possible. But also at the same time, we want to preserve the dignity of your parent in the decision-making process. So a lot of times, it's best to have the family work together and come to the attorney together, and to try to, weed out some of the concerns. And, so basically, getting started is the big piece.
Yeah, and I think what you mentioned, Shane, about independence, I think is a big thing, right? I mean, no one wants to feel like they can't make decisions for themselves, even if they can't. No one wants to admit that. They're going to get defensive,
Yes.
Maybe uncomfortable. Like, yeah, those are definitely, I can definitely see that going in that direction. What common fears or concerns have you found that parents generally have, the elder generally has, when they're planning this stuff out?
Honestly, it is a lot of times about control. Describing what you just said, usually what comes after that, once you start feel like you're threatened, you're going to shut down. And so once the elder shuts down and it's a done deal. That typically means, unfortunately, and not every time, but a lot of times that means they get scared away from the attorney. And if they do have to go into a nursing home, a lot of times they end up not doing any planning and then wasting away a sizable portion of their estate before they're destitute, and have to get on Medicaid. So from a legal perspective, that's our huge fear, that you got scared off in the process and we could actually protect you. From the adult child standpoint, once you start shutting those doors, it's just, it's hard to repair. So this is the most critical part of the process. It really is. Unless the elder has actually come and speaking us one-to-one and trying to fill us out, if you have a family member stepping in and trying to do that, which we love, this is the most critical step where you can actually help bridge the gap between us and them. And so that's all based on trust and dignity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like as you're talking, I'm just picturing my parents and I'm picturing my dad and how he would beat that total, like, no, I still know best. Like, I mean, he still thinks that I'm like 12 years old and don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So like, that I could totally see how a lot of parents have trouble with that transition. You know?
Losing control. Yeah.
Losing control. It's a great way to put it. Yeah. How can children reassure their parents that discussing these topics are in their best interests? I guess I'm asking you to put on your therapist hat a little bit here. What do you think is the best way to do that?
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm Kimbro Stephens, LCSW now. And, I'm kind of a lay therapist anyway, because being an attorney, we counsel a lot of people. And
totally. Especially in this area of law.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what we do with our clients is we tell them, look, we have a relationship here. I'm not just pushing paper and doing legal things. We're here to hear you out. So the thing about the kids is, depending on the circumstances of every case is a little different. Sure. We'll have clues and things about how to handle it. But one of the things that I like the children to express to their parents is, and when I meet with the parents, we're not trying to take control from them. We reassure them that as long as they are capable, as long as they can make decisions for themselves, they're going to make all the decisions. We're not here to take your decision making away. But what we would say to them is, also, if you get to the point where you can't make a decision for yourself, who do you want to make that decision for you? Hopefully it's your kids. And so your kids say, we know you're our parents, we love you more than anybody, and we know what you want and don't want, Mom. We know what you want and don't want, Dad. So who else would you rather have make that decision? Unless you do a plan to allow us to be appointed to do that when the time comes, it's kind of a crapshoot about who's going to be making those decisions. And you may not like those decisions. Right. So what we say to our clients is, when we do an estate plan, we make all of our clients trustees of their own trust. Even Medicaid or asset or irrevocable trust, we still empower our parents to be the trust makers. And we tell them they can change trustees anytime they want. They can change who inherits anytime they want. They never give up any of those rights. But the important thing is to help them to understand that we're going to put a structure in place so that if and when the time comes, they've appointed who they want to make those decisions, so it's going to be in keeping with what they would have wanted. And so that helps break down some of these barriers, and that's what we tell the children, to try to bring them in, and we can explain that to them, because parents aren't going to believe what their kids are saying a lot of times. So we say to them, so that's what we're for. You get your mom and dad to come here and we can answer those difficult questions, so they feel better, because now they're hearing it from the lawyer. Right. They're not just thinking our kids are trying to get in our pocketbook or whatever.
Yeah, or want them gone or something.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So you mentioned before, you talked about, just losing all your money in a nursing home or something like that. How do you help families address those financial concerns related to long-term care, related to Medicaid planning?
I specialize primarily in the area of Medicaid in the firm. And so I'm usually the person that has that conversation. And I explain to them that they don't have to go broke in a nursing home. Most people think that if they get sick one day, that they have to sell their house and they have to liquidate all their holdings and they don't have long-term care insurance. And I say to them, oh, no, that's not the way. You've been a tax-paying citizen your whole life. You're entitled to Medicaid planning just like anybody else. And so there's no ethical dilemma. I tell people Medicaid planning is like tax planning. You're trying to preserve, taxes and things, and you go to your CPA to learn how to do that. Well, we're not much different. We're attorneys doing Medicaid planning. We're helping you navigate the rules of Medicaid so you can preserve as much as your estate and still benefit. After all, you're a United States citizen, paid taxes. We don't. The government doesn't want to see you destitute. They've allowed people to do estate planning, to set assets aside, and to do these things. And so, with proper, effective planning, we can always protect usually 100% of your estate, and still esteem your decisions and where you're going to live and all that stuff. So, really, the sad thing is a lot of people don't think it's ever going to happen to them.
Sure.
And then one day they end up and they need care and they haven't planned. And we can always help people save things even at the last minute. But that's usually more chaotic and it's a crisis. And there's, it's not the best practice.
Yeah, prepare better rather than react, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And the one thing I tell clients is there's two things certain in life, death and taxes, right? So what happens before we die is we get old. And we hope we get old.
Yeah.
And as we get old, we might be a little more feeble. We might need a little help. So, let's plan for the likelihood that that's going to happen, because one way or the other, we're probably going to be there. So this is, the likelihood of this happening to you is very, very high. And it's probably something that, is going to happen. So let's just talk about reality and how life goes, and let's try to plan ahead.
Yeah, a tough again, part of the tough conversation, but if you can get past that fear of the tough conversation, all of a sudden here you've got a plan. So now you can like the peace of mind I feel like that would bring to someone who's getting older is invaluable.
Oh, well, yeah. So you said it, peace of mind, because you have a plan. So when the crisis comes, you're not in a crisis. You go, oh, we got a plan. It takes a lot of the anxiety out of the equation.
Right. I would think so. So what steps should families take when they're trying to create a long-term plan that includes Medicaid considerations or anything else that they need?
So that's a good question. If it's really going by you asking steps, that kind of suggests they're trying to take a proactive measure. So, knowing some of the rules, I think the best step, just to be frank, is just to speak with us, even if you're not in a crisis, even if you don't necessarily need any personal care services right now, but you are getting older, right? Mm-hmm. So the earlier you do it, the better. And if you do it early enough, we can usually save like your entire estate, meaning like protect the money you have now by properly planning ahead of time. So in this situation, if you do need to have nursing home care, that you'll be set up and you actually won't lose anything and still get on Medicaid. So the earlier, the better. What do you usually, there's usually a number you come up with, Kimbro, when you say this is a good age for, is it 70 or 65?
65.
Okay, yeah.
I like to say at 65 is a good time to start thinking about, estate planning for seniors, because, really prior to then, when you're 30s, 40s, the whole, planning is entirely different. You got children, you need life insurance in case you get run over and your kids, aren't going to be able to go to college and stuff like that. But as you get 65, now your kids are grown, hopefully, and now you start thinking about preserving what you've accumulated during your lifetime. And so the issue is you don't want to outlive your money. That's the deal. And if you don't plan properly, you may go broke in your senior days, and then, for lack of anything better, end up in a nursing home broke. So that's like running. So you don't want to outlive your money. So with effective estate planning, You can address long-term care issues. You can address who's going to make decisions for you when you can't. And you'll be able to get government benefits along the way, so it'll stretch that money out so you don't go broke. Because if you spend all your money first on care and then get on Medicaid, now you're broke. But
Right.
if you can preserve estate and assets up front and then get medicated along the way, now you're not digging into that estate all the time, and now you've got money that's going to continue with you throughout your lifetime.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. Yeah, you don't have to get the Medicaid as a last resort. You get it and so you can preserve your estate and your finances. Yeah.
And technically, the person who's on Medicaid doesn't really own the asset at that time, because if they did, they wouldn't be on Medicaid. So
Right.
that's the reason why with estate planning, we reposition it in the family unit, but outside of the parents. And because that's what we say, we sort of accelerate the estate planning up front, so there's no probate at the end. There's not any of this other stuff, and then and then you've got money positioned in the family, so the family can provide that to you along the way. So in one sense, it's not smoke and mirrors or anything like that, but it is an effective way, because that's how you preserve it over time, is by not retaining it yourself, because what you own, you have to spend.
How do you coach adult children in handling the resistance or the denial from parents regarding the need for long-term care planning?
So I think some of that is just, going back to how we initially framed this, was to, in addition to showing respect and everything, it's just to give them information that's not too convoluted. Mm-hmm. So maybe you've spoken to us, we've had a consultation, you give some of that information, to your parent, to let them know, mom or dad, you have this estate here, and if things continue going the way they go, you leave it open to the nursing homes, to us having to actually sell all this if you were ever to go. Now, if you can't ever get your parent to admit that they might end up, especially if they have health problems, if they might end up going to a nursing home, that's going to be something you're just going to have to work on, right? If they're with it and they don't have legal, and they're just plain old stubborn, you're just going to have to take them with a velvet glove, and just because really the whole name of this is not just protecting it for them, we want to protect it for them during their life, but we also want to make sure the family has something left over and not go to the state.
Yeah, and we can't make some people, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you just do the best you can, and if you can't get somebody on board, I mean, it's sad, but not everybody is people make their own decisions.
Right. Well, good advice as always, guys. Thanks for that. And thank you for tuning into the Jurist Law Podcast with Kimbro Stephens and Shane Cox. For more information or to connect with their team, visit juristlawgroup.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave us a review. We love having you be part of our community. Kimbro, Shane, loved having you guys here. Thanks so much for all the insight. Look forward to the next one.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.